Welcome back to episode 18 of the 755 Followed Me Home project. Episode 17, part 2, ended with a cliffhanger. The 755 drove like a new one, the engine was smooth, steering was solid, and the transmission pedals were tight. The only problem? I'd been oil spotted. Well, in a former life, I was a farmer and also a video guy. A friend of mine and I built the first video systems to project live images onto concert screens. That would have been back in 1983. And we were riding around in GM buses powered by Detroit diesel engines. And of course, if you all know about them, they always had an oil leak. Well, we had a situation where a guy would either get fired from the tour or he'd get up too late and miss the bus. And if that was the case, by the time he came down, the bus would be gone and the only thing left was an oil spot. Well, you didn't ever want to be oil spotted. And that's what happened to me with this 755. The 755 came in as a non-runner, so there was no way to know what issues would show up once the rest of the systems were pressurized and operated.
All right, it'll come back.
Well, for better or for worse, there it was. A little puddle of hydraulic oil left on the shop floor. Leaking oil cooler lines are rare, but what will you do when you get oil spotted? When I got this 955, the fenders looked like they'd been spending most of their life in the bottom of a salt mine, but there was another significant problem that needed to be fixed. Somebody's been here before, and instead of replacing the steel lines, rubber hoses had been made up and ran the easiest route to the oil cooler. Of course, with these lines running outside the frame, the grill wouldn't fit, so the radiator screen had to be washed and cleaned often. Since this was going to be a farm tractor, I simply moved the hoses inside the frame and finished out the tractor with new parts and paint. Before we change the oil line, I just want to mention that this section was previously shown as a draft several months ago. So what I would ask you to do is, if you've already seen it and you don't want to watch it again, go on to the end because I have some more information there about future projects. Since this was the first time I'd be replacing an oil cooler line, I made an executive decision to pull the motor and have it out of the way. The bolts were all clean and easy to remove, but the main reason was that it's hard for this old guy to get up, down, and under the tractor. Having the motor removed also provides you a clearer view of what's involved. Hopefully, this will help you decide how to replace a line if you get oil spotted. Here's the upper line. So to get some clearance, to get the wrench on there, I'm going to take this first line loose here and see if that gives me enough room to get in and turn that. Up and out of the way somewhat. I'm trying to hold it. I can get the wrench kind of in there, but I can't turn it. So what I'm going to do is start getting into it. Let me get some focus going here. So I'm going to first drop this first line off of the power steering valve. With that power steering line out of the way, I can get the wrench in, but I can't get it over the nut. Well, there I go. I've got it. Maybe I'll see if I can bust that loose. Pretty doggone tight. I gotta have both hands. Well, I didn't have the right metric wrench, but I have an old 15/16 old Craftsman that I've had around in my farm toolbox for years, and its thin enough jaw is allowing me to go in there and turn that thing. You can't see it, but there's another line down behind it there, so it's really touchy to try to get in there and get that thing loose. Just be prepared. It's not a quick thing, but it had to be done. Well, there's not much of a problem out here where this line is already loose and wobbles around. But the problem is that the new line, where that one has to come out, and there's this bend right here. So it has to, the drive shaft, front drive shaft is about here. So what this has to do is come to the side, forward, and down. And if that will work, then it comes out and we can bring this one back in. It may be there's another problem. I'll have to get back with you. I don't know what I did, but I took the filter out of the way. That line was able to rotate over and it fell out. Now would it be easier, or could you do it with the engine in? Yeah, probably, but you have to get it out like this. So I would recommend you've got to take the fuel tank or the radiator out anyway. It's not that much more work to go ahead and take the motor out. Here's where the problem was, and I didn't want to put in a piece of hose. My experience was that thing came right up in there. You had to put the back of where the radiator is, you had to put the new line outside the other one because it didn't want to do that exactly. And the only other thing to do is replace the O-ring that goes in the head of this. I'm going to hold on to it. Well, maybe I can't. There's a groove in the fitting. Okay, I want to verify it's there. It's there. So now, very carefully, I may not be able to show you this, but pick that line up. Hold your mouth just right. And that nut will go on. So, as far as changing out this or the other line, which is down below it, would actually be easier. Just take out the oil filter and those lines will drop out. And you might be able to do it with the engine, but you'll have to take the radiator just to help get it through there, since you're going to have the oil cooler, at least one of the bolts on it, loose anyway. Now I can take my old Craftsman 15/16 with the narrow jaws. Doesn't look like much, but it'll go in there and tighten her up, and then we can have the fun of making another engine install. Before I tighten her down, it looks like we're going to be, that line is right up next to the other one. That doesn't matter. There. Okay, so much for that. All right, there's how you change a smaller upper oil cooler line with the factory part. Well, I thought I'd take a final picture around here before I drop the motor back in. But it's not a big deal, it's just really messy. And anyway, there's that new line. So, good luck. If you have one of those lines leaking, just bite the bullet and take a day and do it. With the cooler line changed and the engine back in, the next thing to do is get the 755 body parts painted and installed. Sitting alongside the 755, the 855 has been waiting patiently for me to finish installing injectors and take it for a shakedown cruise. The 755 blind date is on hold because I'm thinking about doing something different with it. No, not parting it out, just transitioning it into something different. So what future projects are in the pipeline? Well, I'm looking forward to getting after the first of 2 new arrivals. I'm going to keep them out of sight for right now, and in order to avoid confusion of the last 3 projects, produce an individual series that follows each of these from inspection to completion. Soon I'll be listing the 755 and the 855 for sale or trade and opening the shop to perform repairs and restoration. Also, if you're interested in the 755, body parts are ready for paint. So if you're interested in it in that condition and do the work yourself, let me know in the comments below. Coming up in episode 19, I'll be doing a bit of body work on the 755 hood, painting the body parts, and getting the 855 ready for work. As always, thanks for watching.